Hello there, and welcome to another edition of Mr. Nowak's Classroom, the virtually irrelevant podcast. We're recording this on the hottest day in human history, in July. You know how I handle the heat. And we're going to be joined by Waqas Khurshid. He is a former RCI basketball standout, and he's going to help educate us about Islam and, maybe dispel the myths and maybe educate us about his religion, his following, and really try to dispel some of the myths that are out there. So first of all, Waqas, welcome home.
Thank you. It's good to be home.
What's it like going from the big city, traveling the world, to come home to Renfrew, small town Ontario?
Before I left, I guess I didn't really appreciate this life of a small town, of Renfrew, of RCI, of basketball, all that stuff. But when you leave, you really figure out that it's a nice place to be. I don't know, I can't speak for everybody, but that's the way it was for me.
Well, I love that, and I've always been a proponent of small town Ontario, especially Renfrew, the benefits of living here. Yeah. Now, let's take us back 2 years, maybe 3.
Okay.
You were a scholar, an athlete, diverse in your interests, could have went engineering, medicine, but you decided to follow a different path. First of all, can you tell us what that path is, and then why you chose that path?
So currently I am studying to be a Muslim missionary. You can liken it to, a Christian seminary. I'm not really sure exactly how those work, but pretty much Muslim missionary is how my job description would be. Basically, why I chose it, religion has always been a big factor in my life, and I would always, whenever I would see somebody say something negative about even religion in general and about people's beliefs and stuff, I would always feel the need to want to defend them. And so that, that need eventually spurred it, into what can I do? How can I do this full time? And so I saw this, and I saw other places I could go. The other things do interest me. I'm not giving up other interests. I love the sciences. I love, the geography, whatever, right? I like school. I like learning. But at the same time, I figured if I did this, this would be the highest calling for me.
Love it. Love it. Now, when you crossed the stage of graduation, I butchered the name. Could you tell us the for lack of a better name, a school that you're at? Or?
No, it is a school.
Yeah.
It got registered as a licensed institution.
Nice.
So I'm not underground anymore. I went legit on that.
What's the name of it?
The name of it is Jamia Ahmadiyya Canada. Jamia literally just in Arabic it means university or a post-secondary place of learning. Ahmadiyya is the particular sect of Islam that I follow, and then Canada. So Jamia Ahmadiyya Canada.
Okay, I'm not going to try to repeat that. So that's based out of Toronto.
That is.
So tell us some of your studies. So how is your Arabic? I can't even say that. How is the language? Did you know it beforehand, or how comfortable are you with?
So the way I look at it in the language, you have 3 different aspects: reading, writing, and conversational. So in Arabic, I could read it. That's just because I was taught to read the Quran from a young age. So I could read it, but I still couldn't understand it. I could just simply read Arabic letters and understand it, no, and let alone conversational. When I went there, they started, I was more fluent in my reading, and I started understanding what I was reading more. Writing, I learned how to, it's a new alphabet, I learned how to make letters, and then speaking, working on it. So mostly reading and writing is getting better.
And you also took Spanish, I believe, right?
Spanish for a little bit, just because the main focus of where they're going to be sending us at this point is trying to prepare for Spanish countries. There's people out there, and surprisingly, there's quite a number of Muslims over there that I never knew.
No, when I think of Islam, I don't think of Latin America. I don't think of Spanish.
It seems like a Christian or Catholic stronghold, but apparently people are, getting just distancing themselves from that. So that was something interesting. So
very interesting. Now, on a day-to-day basis, as a practicing Muslim, what does your day look like in terms of prayer, in terms of diet?
So when I lived here, it was totally different. When I lived in Renfrew, the way I practiced might have been different. So a Muslim prays 5 times a day. That is one of the pillars of Islam, that you pray 5 times a day. So those prayers might have gotten moved around, maybe combined, whatever, just because you're not in that environment to fully do it at the right times, and you're also at school, also you're doing something in the evening or something. So there is that leeway in Islam that you can move the timings around if need be. But now that I'm at school and there's a mosque literally 5-minute walk from me, those prayer timings do become more rigid. Like, okay, this is the time for prayer, this is this, and in that way practicing has been different. Just being around other people to prayer and stuff, that's how it changes. In terms of diet, diet is the same, other than of course in Ramadan.
And can you explain that?
So Ramadan is a month in the Islamic lunar calendar.
Which just finished, right?
Ramadan just finished, yes.
Okay.
So it's a month in the lunar calendar, meaning it does run by the phases of the moon. So it does change timings according to the Gregorian calendar throughout the year, about 10 days earlier every year. It starts and finishes. So in Ramadan, Muslims are taught to fast, and there's a verse in the Quran that tells Muslims that you have been prescribed fasting, just like people before you have been prescribed to fast, so that you may become righteous. So in that verse, it says, if you're not alone, there are other people who have done it the same way you have, and why? To attain righteousness. So basically, it's 30 days of fasting, and fasting for a Muslim is different than fasting in other religions. Some people just don't eat something cooked over a fire, or they give something, a couple of things up, something, they can't eat some things. But for a Muslim, it's eat nothing, drink nothing from sunrise until sunset. And as I said, the months move around, so those fasts do become easier or harder depending on where you live and the time of year.
Now, of course, it comes at the longest daylight period this time. So you'll talk about your caloric intake after sunset and before sunrise. I'm just astounded by this.
Some people think that, oh, you must lose a lot of weight in Ramadan. But actually, because people are trying to make it through the long, hot day, they will just eat and drink a lot before sunrise. And they'll try to eat like fatty foods or foods full of protein and stuff like that to try to get them throughout the day. And then after, when you break it, obviously you've been hungry all day, you just eat whatever you want. So actually, the caloric intake pretty much balances itself out unless you want to. But after you get in a routine, like this year, I did it for the first couple of days, eating a lot, and then after that, like, I would wake up late someday, and so I don't have much time, so I would just grab a couple of dates that I had just lying there, and they're really just high in energy, just packed with energy, and then some milk, and that was it. And those were actually the easiest fasts for me. It was weird.
See, I just have so much respect for this period, and I always link it back to sports, where you have high-level athletes who are practicing Islam and fasting during high athletic competitions, and they can't take water, they can't eat. And I think back in the day, this might have been before your time, but Hakeem Olajuwon was I think he was playing NBA Finals during Ramadan, and like
at that time it would have been. I
can't even fathom not being able to intake water, but that just shows the dedication to the religion. I think it's outstanding. Now, a new trend kind of came up this year about non-Muslims fasting and it was a hashtag on Twitter,
Yes.
fasting with Muslims. What do you think about that trend? Is it educating the masses? Are you offended by that practice? What do you think?
Actually, my sister told me that you had heard about this, and so I was shocked and pleasantly surprised actually, because it was our initiative. Like, my community actually started that. So for that to reach this, like, I was actually shocked. Like, wow, this is pretty cool actually. So I support it, because it's just all about education. The only reason that would have started is just to, you know, we're Muslims, this is what we do, but we also live a daily life, and we're normal during this time. Only difference is it's not just fasting that you try to do in Ramadan. There's also other things. Obviously, it says, the Quran says, so to become righteous. So to become righteous, you have to do other things as well. You have to pray more, read the Quran more, give more in charity, be nicer to people. A lot of people say that, like, if you're angry or something, you want to curse at somebody, then you hold yourself back because you remember you're fasting. So it has multi-level, benefits.
Would this be considered the most holy period of the year?
Yes, and people liken it to like a training course, like a boot camp. That this is where you try to be the most spiritual, so you can be at that level, and you try to maintain that level throughout the year.
Very interesting. Now, when Ramadan ends, there is a celebration. Yes. Correct? Can you tell us about that?
So in the Muslim calendar, there are two festivals called Eids. And so this one, the one that just passed, the one at the end of Ramadan, is called Eid al-Fitr. And the one like 2 months from now is called Eid al-Adha. And basically Eid al-Fitr is celebrating you made it through Ramadan. You can eat and drink, and you're encouraged to do so. Actually, it said that the only person who fasts during Eid is a hypocrite. So you're encouraged to eat and drink and do general merrymaking.
Is there a traditional? I like to associate celebration with food, as you know. Is there a traditional food to signify this celebration?
Nothing Islamic. Like, Islam is, I guess, a religion, not necessarily a culture.
Right.
So food tends to be cultural, not religious. Other than like Prophet Muhammad, he ate dates a lot. Or there was about the only thing in Desert Arabia to eat. So that's come into Muslim mindset that this is like, this is following his practice if we eat dates. So that, I guess you could say, is somewhat, become religious, but not, I wouldn't necessarily do it in that way. So basically you just eat the foods of your culture, of your people, and do things like...
And that's really interesting how we associate, or how I associate culture with religion, but that you can have a faith of Muslim and live in different cultures, like we're seeing with the spread of Islam in Spanish, which is really interesting, right? Okay, let's go back to your daily prayer and talk about the prayer process when you go to prayer. And is there a foot cleansing? Is there a mat? Time of day? Can you just kind of educate us on that?
So we'll start with time of day. 5 prayers. 1 before the sun rises. Then the second one is immediately after midday. Then the third one is in between midday and sunset. And then 1 immediately after sunset. And then 1 after everything has become dark. So this is based on where the sun is. So therefore, throughout the year, the timings do end up changing as the days get longer and shorter.
Right.
So that's timings, and then how we actually pray is it starts off with washing oneself. There's a whole thing called wuzu, and that is basically washing your hands, then washing your nose, washing your mouth, then your nose, then your face, then your arms, then your neck and ears, and your top of your head, and then your feet. That is washing yourself, getting yourself into that mode, that cleanliness of going to prayer. And it has psychological benefits as well, that you're doing this, you're getting into that gear, into that mode. I'm going to go pray. then you go to your mosque or you go into your room, whatever, get a prayer mat, whatever. Then the prayer is either led if you're doing it congregation. A person leading it is called an imam. That's all an imam is, a person who leads somebody. And so they lead the prayer. Different prayers have different lengths. And then that's prayer.
Okay, that's awesome. And how long would that process usually be?
Depending on how long the prayer is.
Yep.
And some prayers traditionally are like, we break them up into cycles, like the cycle of all the movements. Prayer for us is both physical and spiritual in a sense. So there's physical movements associated with the prayer, and those have cycles. So just to use the word cycle, some prayers have like 2 cycles, some prayers have like 4 cycles of these movements. And then during this prayer, we recite portions of the Quran, certain prayers that are specified for certain positions of these movements, and so you recite those prayers at those times.
So when you're at school, or if you're in a predominantly Islamic city per se, do you see like the school shut down or the city shut down to partake, or how does that look?
Yeah, so I have been to Mecca,
which I want to talk to you about in a second.
Yes,
yeah.
Good segue. So when I went to Mecca, I saw that all the shops shut down, all the businesses, whatever you're doing, everything shuts down. Everyone goes to prayer. They have police there enforcing this, like shut it down, it's time for prayer. And then all the shopkeepers, all the shopkeepers are like, yeah, 1 second, I just gotta finish up this deal. They're trying to do their work. And then in the end, everyone shuts down, goes to prayer, and then comes back. That is, of course, if everybody, because literally everybody in Makkah is Muslim. You're not allowed in if you're not Muslim. So literally everyone is Muslim, so you're not inconveniencing really anybody. You shouldn't be anyways. And then, like for example, where I live, that's not the way it works. Like, sure, most people do go, but it's not like you're knocking on every door or something trying to get everyone out. If you're at work, you're not like, expected to be there at exactly that time.
And you had a very liberal interpretation of this while you were in high school, right? Can you just kind of talk about how you were able to, I don't know, negotiate around the times?
So Islam was, as we could say, revealed 1,400, 1,500 years ago. So obviously what Islam was back then, it isn't exactly, or isn't practiced exactly that same way today. There's no teachings in there about, what if there's too much snow and ice on the roads, you can't get to the mosque, obviously.
That's a great point. Okay.
So that's not there, but there is like more general statements. For example, like, obviously if you can't go do something, then you don't have to do it. Even fasting, there's if you're sick, elderly, unable to fast, certain list of exceptions that you don't have to fast then. So basically Islam is where Islam was back then. It just depends on your interpretation of it. And what I guess we believe, my community, my sect believes, that the teachings themselves are still valid. Applying them to today's society is still possible, because they're just ways of living, ways of life. If you apply them to today's society, you can still navigate through society maybe much better than people who don't have like a faith background, or I want to say like moral compass or something. But.
Right. Fascinating. Okay, let's segue then to Mecca. And can you describe what Mecca is and the expectation on you and on other practicing Muslims?
So, history, background.
Love it.
Started, don't know when. I'm sure you've seen the Kaaba, or the black box, the focal point for prayer for all Muslims. That has kind of unknown origins, built by prophets or holy men way back in the day. But the current one that we see, in the current form that we see it, we believe was built by the Prophet Abraham. he was in the I guess you could say the Middle Eastern area, kind of north of Arabia, kind of that names of Canaan and stuff like that come up. So he was there with his sons, and then when it's in the Bible as well. Muslims just interpret it a little differently in the fact that he sent his one of his wives and his son Ishmael to go live in the desert. Now in the Bible it says that because his other wife told him to get rid of them, but Quran believes that this was due to divine revelation and this had a plan.
Fascinating.
So once they get there, Abraham leaves them, and then they basically fend for themselves and they make a community there. Other tribes come by and they settle down, seeing that they have found water. And so basically Abraham comes and visits his son after he has grown up a little bit, and they build the Kaaba. They build this house of worship, and this becomes a central focal point for worship in that area. So that is where Makkah starts, built by the Prophet Abraham leaving his son there, and the inhabitants of Arabia and stuff like that. A lot of them can trace back their roots to Ishmael, who was there. So presently, this is where Muslims go to worship, perform the pilgrimage, which is mandatory on every Muslim once in their life, if they can do it. Again, if they can do it.
Okay.
Financially, if you can do it, then you don't have to do it. Physically, if you are unable to do it, don't do it. If the way there is dangerous and stuff, then obviously you don't have to do it. For every able-bodied person who can go, you have to go and perform the pilgrimage. And it's just a series of rituals and stuff like that that basically commemorate the sacrifice of Prophet Abraham, of Prophet Muhammad, and stuff that he used to do, and just trying to get into that close relationship with God. Even at this time, focus is prayer. Muslims like to say that in regular days it's 5 prayers, but on the Eid there are 6 prayers. On the day of celebration, we have an extra prayer. So this, if you're not going to pray to God when you're happy, and you're just going to turn to Him when it's dark times, Quran likens it to like a ship, where the people in the ship, it's a big storm and stuff, and they're really scared, and so the people in the ship, they start praying to God, really start praying to God, and like, please save us from this, please. And then when God saves them, they just walk away and they're like, yeah, okay, we're done now. So in terms of happiness, people don't really remember God.
When you say God, is it interchangeable with Allah?
Yes, exactly. It's just the Arabic word for it. The exact same thing.
Okay.
My God is your God, is somebody else's God. Muslims believe in one God. That's, we're educating the masses. That's the main pillar of Islam, which is that there is no God but Allah, or there is no God but God, none worthy of worship but God, and Muhammad is His messenger and prophet.
If someone said, God bless you,
yeah,
are you okay with that?
I would be happy. I want God to bless me.
So I think there's a myth, right?
Really?
And we're going to talk about political correctness and greetings in a second. I want to focus still on Mecca. Is there a time of year that you make the pilgrimage, or? Yeah,
again, it's with the lunar calendar, so it changes year by year. So the pilgrimage has to be performed in those days, but if you go other than that, then you can do like a lesser pilgrimage and just do lesser things, and it's not counted towards your mandatory one, but it's just lesser. You can go visit.
Talk about geography. How do you get to Mecca?
Get to Mecca. So present day, back in the day, this would have been different. Ships, camel caravans,
right.
Who knows, right? Today, you go to the nearest airport, which is in a city called Jeddah, and then you can just get a car to Mecca. It's quite easier now.
And can you talk about the I'm assuming it's going to be an emotional experience.
Yeah, seeing the Kaaba for the first time, or just being in that city for the first time, especially for Muslims who have lived their whole lives with that want, with that wish of wanting to go there, it really does, overwhelm really everybody who goes there. They say that the prayer that you make the first time you see the Kaaba, you see that black cube, is always fulfilled. Like it's always accepted. So Muslims are always, you know, wanting to go there, wanting to see it, wanting to get their prayers accepted. The whole area is, as you know, a designated sacred area. So people want to go there. They want to do good things. They want to do prayers there. You know, it's at a higher level of other prayers. Just the mental atmosphere that you're in just makes your prayers better.
Fascinating. Outstanding. Okay, this is going to sound uneducated. But what can you tell us about the Prophet Muhammad?
Okay, so he was born in the lineage of Prophet Abraham through Ishmael. We believe Ishmael was also a prophet, and so he was born in that lineage. His family kind of ruled that area. His tribe, really, the Quraysh, ruled that area. But again, prior details. But what we really need to know is that he was born. His father had died before his birth, so he grew up without a father. And his mother died when he was very young as well. So he was an orphan by like age of 6. So then he went to live with his grandfather, who was the leader of his tribe. Then his grandfather died like 2 years later.
Wow.
So then he went to live with his uncle, who then took him in. He had a bunch of kids of his own, and wasn't a necessarily wealthy man. So, but that's where he went, and that's where he lived. So from a young age, he was orphaned, moved around houses, and he was illiterate. He could not read or write anything. And later in life, all we see is traces of he could recognize what his own name was. So he was totally illiterate, which is, we use this as a proof that the things written, people say that Muhammad wrote the Quran. Like A, he can't read or write, and B, he's completely illiterate. So things in the Quran that are written, you know, a person who is in desert Arabia would not know how a baby is formed inside the womb. But that stuff is written in the Quran. So that's separate thing. That's
Yeah.
Anyways, he was then from childhood, we say that he was more quiet and reserved and didn't like to do his the other things that Meccans like to do, which was, of course, they were very heavy partying and drinking and, you know, just reading poetry and all very, very evil inclined society. He didn't really necessarily partake in that. Meccans actually were so bad that girls, if they had a newborn girl, we find that some people used to bury them alive.
Oh.
Just it was a source of shame or for the family, and like we wanted a son, so no, you gotta go. So that obviously doesn't happen anymore in Arabia or anywhere really, I hope. So he grew up in this society, just giving you background where he grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And then he, you know, didn't really like that society, so he would like to spend time on his own, meditating and praying, and eventually he received revelation, and the angel told him to recite, and he said, I don't know how to recite, I'm illiterate. And by persistence, the angel told him what to recite, started giving him revelation, which we now find in the form of the Quran. So that revelation was then compiled, different teachings, different stories. The Quran contains many things, from stories of past prophet, different teachings, a bunch of other stuff. We can get to that later. And then, so that's who the prophet was. Now people might say other things, like he was like a warlord and stuff. He liked to fight people for land, and he really liked women, and he would marry a lot just because he liked women. These things are all okay, they're allegations, but what you have to do is you have to study the history of it. That for 13 years in Mecca, him and his followers were persecuted. They were beaten, tortured in many ways until the point that they were killed. But this whole time he didn't fight at all. Then when he moved, then he actually fled. He migrated to a neighboring town that was much friendlier to him, and then the Meccans still wouldn't let go, and they still wanted to go and attack him. And so, you know, battles obviously happened. You have to and then God revealed the verse that you're allowed to fight in self-defense.
Okay.
That's the main point, that when Muslims do fight, it is in self-defense. You're not allowed to be the instigator in any confrontation. So in self-defense, the Muslim had to fight quite a number of wars, and so again, I don't think you can really blame somebody for fighting in self-defense. If you don't fight, then you're just as good as dead.
Yes.
So that was there, and okay, so I brought it up to not answer it. The way with the women thing. So he did marry more than once, but that was for other reasons. People say that he really enjoyed the company of women and all that stuff. The women that he did marry, they were old and widowed, all except one. And his first wife, he didn't marry during that time at all. He was 25 and she was 40.
Wow.
So he didn't marry again during that time, and he would always remember her lovingly. So if there is that allegation that he liked young women, is marrying them, I think that you can dispel that.
Okay.
Other than that, yeah, he had some companions around him at all times. They would listen to him. They would try to gain benefit in any way, some wisdom from him. And he lived very, very simply, not a life of a king. They say that when he slept and he got up, you could see the marks of the straw, like, kind of bed, I guess you can say, that he had. He would barely have anything to eat in the house. People would come to him. One of his wives narrates that somebody came to me looking for food for her and her children, and so I gave her like some I think three dates or some bread or something, and that was all they had in the house most of the time. After he was victorious in Arabia, and he went back to he was always for peace. If there was a chance to make peace, no matter how bad the conditions for it, he would accept. There was once a treaty in which he accepted that the companions themselves got angry, and they said, this is embarrassment for us accepting these treaties. But he said, no, this has been revealed to me by God that this is a victory. So that ended up being a victory in that they ended up conquering Mecca, because through peaceful means. They didn't come in, swords wielded. In fact, they came in so humbly that they said that the Prophet, when he was riding on his camel, he was bent over so low, just in humility, that his head was touching the back of the camel in front of him. So they came in, and they peacefully retook the city that used to be theirs, and the Kaaba returned to worshipping of one God before it became idols and stuff. That's brief life history of.
So when you conduct prayer, would you pray to Muhammad like Christians pray to Jesus Christ, or how would you articulate that relationship?
So bringing this back to the biggest pillar of Islam, there is none worthy of worship except God.
Right.
That should give you your answer.
Yeah.
We do not.
Okay.
We believe he was the greatest prophet.
Okay.
He was the greatest human being, but to put him at God level is we don't do that. We don't do that with anybody.
Very interesting. Okay, so there you see, like, instinctively, I want to compare it to Christianity, and I think that's that being my background, and I think that's another conversation. But then again, we're going to talk about holy books, and I'm going to talk about the Bible, and how would you? Let's take the Quran. It's impossible to make generalizations in a few minutes, but how is it pieced together? Is it in chapters? You alluded to some of the stories and guidelines that it has. If you were, you have, a minute or two to kind of describe. Okay. This is challenging, but okay, so I'll throw that out there for you.
So, the Bible is a collection of. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're the expert.
Well, I'm not the expert. This is where we need Mr. Beatty here.
Where of stories about prophets and about Jesus, sometimes by Jesus' words himself, and sometimes through the narration of other saints. That's what I'm going to say. I think
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. I can take that. Yeah.
Okay. And then the Quran, however, is we believe to be directly the Word of God. So there is no nothing that anybody else has said included in there. It's directly the Word of God. He mentions that the Prophet Moses said this, or the Prophet Solomon did this, but God has revealed every word to Prophet Muhammad. And Muslims believe that the Quran, well, first, it contains prophecies, stories, teachings, just glorifying God, different prayers, all that stuff. God has told us in the Quran that surely we have sent down this book, and surely we will be his guardians. Basically, a promise that the Quran will remain unchanged. Now that's a problem we find in other holy books, that throughout the time we're not sure if this was, this is actually what was written, or this maybe it's changed throughout time.
And that's through translation of language as well, where you could see the changes too.
That's one aspect of it.
Right.
Another thing that it's just we don't know what the original Bible said, where
Right.
it is. Like
Right.
we just don't know. And when we find older manuscripts and stuff, then we can verify and stuff. Recently, however, like this week, an old version of the Quran was found. I don't know if you.
I didn't see that.
It was in England, I believe. It was an old manuscript of the Quran. So immediately, what people do is they start reading it and they compare it with the current version of the Quran we have to make sure, and it matches up every single time.
Interesting.
And the protection of the Quran really quickly.
Yeah.
There are people who have memorized the entire Quran, the entirety of it in the original Arabic. And this has been a practice that's dated back since Prophet Muhammad. He would get revelation, he can't read or write, he memorized it. Every revelation he would memorize it, and he would tell other people, and they would memorize it. Because it came down little at a time. So it's not this big task. You memorize, a couple sentences a week, it's not bad.
Right.
And so you memorize the whole Quran over time. And then they would teach others, and they would teach others. And this line of people memorizing the Quran has remained unbroken until today. There's still people out there today who memorize it in its entirety. And so
wow,
that can be like, it can't really change if this is what's happening. If a teacher's teaching the Quran, listening to it, make sure there's no mistakes, and everybody else is doing this too, then if there is a mistake somewhere, it'll get weeded out. But wow, that's like a proof we have. The Quran has remained unchanged to the letter.
Does the Quran say anything about creationism? About how the world started?
How the world started? The Big Bang is mentioned in the Quran. It says that it was a closed up mass, and then we caused it to be spread out. Caused it to. So that's basically the Big Bang theory.
Wow.
And it does allude to the Big Crunch as well.
The Big Crunch. The
Big Crunch, where the ending of the universe. So if the Big Bang is a small thing expanding out to infinity, making infinity actually, then the Big Crunch, it says, will be like a scroll, and so it scrolls up and it will be closed, which is what some scientists do believe that will be how the universe ends.
One of the things that I think I see is that we group all of Muslims together. And I think that's, well, grouping all of Christianity together too is a little problematic, because after the Reformation we've had, there's Protestantism, there's Catholicism. How is Islam subdivided?
Okay, so unfortunately people are getting to know about Islam's different divisions through the violence that happens between them. Bad place to start, but it's true. Shias and Sunnis, you can say, are the main division that happened during the time of the caliphate that happened after the Prophet Muhammad.
Okay.
Since that we can trace the roots of this split back to that point.
Okay.
So there are some people who revere certain people higher than other people who basically revere them as closer to Prophet Muhammad, or other things. Then there's some people who I don't want to step on any Shia toes here, but who follow the more mainstream version of what exactly I've told you. The Prophet Muhammad, he had cows.
Right, right.
They follow that. Other people, they mix that, I guess, order up of, I guess, righteousness. So there is that. They really don't like each other, as you can see in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
ISIS is actually a Sunni group out to get Shias by their, original plans. For whatever reasons, political now. They did something wrong to us, and they're Shia, so we're gonna get them because they're Shia, not because they did something wrong. It's just it's not.
That must break your heart.
Yeah, like it's like people say like, oh, we gotta stop in America, like we gotta stop like black on black crime. Yeah, that's a thing. Same over here. We're gonna stop Muslim crime. We're gonna stop anything. Like we're gonna stop all violence in general. I look at the Quran and the way the Quran has been taught to me as a very peace-loving book and not one of violence. And the religion of Islam has not been of one to violence for me. I'm not naturally inclined to violence, so I don't find that in there. So for these people to find violence in a peaceful book, to me is tragic. And quite honestly, I guess one of the reasons that I went into what I wanted to do is I want to educate people. And
if I was asked the question of what is the biggest myth about Islam, I would say the biggest myth is that it's violent, but it's not at all. Yeah. And I'm so ashamed that that peaceful, loving Muslims like yourself have to speak on behalf of Islam, and that must be so frustrating for you.
Yeah, you try to take a negative and turn into a positive. This is like that. The fact that it's such a such a misconception has given Muslims like me a platform to speak on it. So you try to do what you can. And coming back to your first point, that Muslims by themselves or by the teachings, you can say, it's been really misconstrued to violence. But as you said, there are normal Muslims in the world, and the vast majority of them are normal. It's the unfortunate minority that it gets.
And it's a ridiculously small minority.
Yeah, something like barely like a percentage.
Yeah.
And they get
but that's what gets the media attention, and it drives me insane.
That's how media works. I mean, media needs a story.
Yeah.
But
other than that myth, do you think are there other myths out there that
I think
pique your nerves or whatnot?
I think this is the biggest one. Another is again, you can't even say like myths because if I was on the outside looking in,
right,
I probably wouldn't have such a fond or such a good perception of Islam. Because Muslims are ruining it for themselves out there, right? Like, you look at Islam, you look at what Muslims are doing. You look at Islam, you look at what Muslims are doing. You look at Christianity, you look at what Christianity is doing. Obviously, that's your first impression. If I was on the outside, I would not give Islam a second thought based on strictly what Muslims are doing. You have to obviously go into the teachings of it, but Muslims aren't really making it, easy for themselves and what they're doing. So in that case, it's not really a myth because it's what they're doing, right? So we gotta educate them as well. A lot of people say that to us. We start promoting religion of peace, and they said, go fix it in your own backyard. And we're like, fair, valid point. But other myths, again, said they take shots at the Prophet Muhammad,
right?
So that sucks because we love him dearly,
right?
So that definitely sucks. But again, a myth would be if somebody insults the Prophet, we have to kill them. That would be a myth which has unfortunately been brought up by Muslims themselves. No, we don't. There is an instance where there were the Prophet and one of his companions sitting there, and somebody came in and just started hurling abuses at him, and they both remained quiet. And then once the companion started speaking up and defending him, the Prophet walked away. So then the companion asked him afterwards, like, why'd you walk away? I started defending you. He said, while you were quiet, there were angels present, and they were recording like this is a good deed. But as you spoke up and started defending, the angels left, so I left. So we just have to sit there, be quiet, and be patient with it. That's what we're taught to do, not go and kill people.
And that this was been brought to the attention where different media outlets, newspapers in France and in Netherlands have put the Prophet Muhammad in a caricature form, which is what we're kind of speaking to here. So Waqas is, saying, the peaceful thing to do is to not retaliate, is to let the angels be with you, and that might take more strength than the actual violent rebuttal.
Because you get angry, and obviously you want to release your anger in some way. But if you just sit there and be patient with it, that's better for you and everybody.
Wow. Okay. Growing up in a white Christian-dominated community.
Yes.
What was it like?
I liked it. I guess.
But there must have been hardships.
I guess.
Or heartwarming stories of acceptance too.
So, I guess what you know as a kid is what you know as your life, right? I've known Islam. I've known my, I guess Pakistani cultural community, my family, but I've also never grown up in that society. I've always grown up around mostly white Christian people. So that's who are my friends. That's who I know, my teammates, everything. That's who I know. And so it actually was quite a culture shock going back to my own culture, technically, going away to school.
We never think of culture shock in that sense. Yeah. That's really interesting.
So this was home for me, and I'm happy in the sense that Renfrew has been very accepting, and the fact that maybe hopefully due to my being here and being with a certain generation that has gone through school in Renfrew, that they have seen that, okay, this is a guy, he's brown, he's Pakistani, he's Muslim, and he's a normal dude. He studies the same as us. He eats pretty much, except for pork, the same food we do.
Plays basketball. Has technology.
Yeah, goes out and just hangs out and does whatever, right? So hopefully, seeing that, they if they did have something in their minds, or if maybe their parents had something in their minds or something, and I was able to meet them and they say, okay, this guy and his parents are regular people, same as everyone else. It's been good. If you're looking for like racist stories, like a joke here and there, but that gets dispelled fairly quickly. Mostly, it was a very good experience. In you say something like, for example, I don't eat pork. There would be people like separately ordering something for me, so I could also enjoy in the whatever pizza party or something.
Right.
And so stuff like that, they just get it. I encourage to ask questions. I think they might be a little scared, or like they don't want to sound politically incorrect at some times in asking questions. But yeah, I've always been happy to educate.
How accommodating in terms of your diet, would mainstream restaurants, airlines be?
So there are, again, more than one school of thought on this.
Right.
Some people are highly just against anything that's just not certified halal. And even,
can you say that term again?
Halal. It basically means permissible to eat.
Okay. And see, I don't seem to be educated in that. Like, in terms of Judaism, it's like, it's kosher, it's okay to eat. Yeah. But I hope this comes more into our vernacular as well. So
it's very similar to kosher, actually, because we do believe that all the major religions, they did come from the same source, which is God. So God told the Jews a certain dietary laws, and sorry, people don't like this, but he didn't really take any out for the Christians.
Right.
So, we believe that they should have just followed that one.
Right.
That's another thing.
Yeah.
But he gave Muslims a certain set of dietary laws as well, which obviously if he gave to the Jews, they were good, so they work for us as well. So kosher stuff, we eat kosher stuff. That's good to go. But basically all food is allowed for Muslim to eat, other than if it's been specifically prohibited, or it's been said that it's, this, you shouldn't eat this, it's not really that great. But still, if you are in a state of like starvation or whatever, then you're still allowed to eat it. Like, you're allowed to. It's not, mindlessly cruel in that regard. So halal food is getting in the mainstream more and more as Muslims travel to Western countries. But even then, people are like, okay, in the slaughterhouses, they don't actually pronounce. Halal means you pronounce the name of God as you slaughter an animal. That is one of the criteria for food being halal. You slaughter the animal with the name of God, and you also let the blood run out. So you don't, like, I guess, just stun it and just let it for the blood to just sit in there. That's not good. So that's mostly how people do it anyways, though, so it's not really a problem. So what you try to make food halal as much as you can. Some places carry it, but other than that, you have to eat, like, you're bound by certain things. It's fine, like, I think, and again, my whole community also think that it's fine.
I'm just so fascinated by, I don't know if it's a liberal interpretation, but when you talk about you're not bound by this, if in necessity, you can change your prayer pattern. I think that's, a lot of people don't understand that, and this kind of comes back to, we all get up in arms about in the Christian holy season of Christmas about greetings. And so many, favorite topic of mine. That if you're okay if I say Merry Christmas to you.
Yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't be. Like, this is, like, I've thought about this. I don't see how that's offensive to anybody. Like, it's a person who is happy and wants to share his happiness with you, and you're taking offense to it. That literally just boggles my mind, how you can be like, no, I don't celebrate Christmas, what is wrong with you, and consider it uncultured, whatever. But I don't do that. If you're happy, I'm happy that you're happy.
And you said you wouldn't want people to abstain from that greeting.
If people say happy holidays, like, that's also nice. Like, I'm having a happy holiday, you're having a happy holiday, that's all good. But if you say Merry Christmas to me, I'm not going to correct you. No, it's happy holidays. I'm not celebrating Christmas. I'm on regular holiday. Like, season's greetings, like, whatever, right? If you say Merry Christmas to me, that's fine. You say happy holidays to me, it's fine. Don't.
If you say God bless you.
Please, I want God to bless me. And just say what you want. It's not the end of the world for me.
Is there a generic greeting that Muslims use?
Yes. We greet each other with Assalamu alaikum. That, you might have heard that, rappers use it in songs and stuff sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, I've heard that used in songs, just in there. It's become more and more part of people's vernacular now.
Right.
But it literally means, it's Arabic, it literally means peace be upon you. And so that is a traditional Muslim greeting, which, when you greet somebody, you're sending a prayer on them. You're wishing peace to be with them. And there's longer versions of prayers, and the blessings of God also be with you, and however long you wanna do it. So, but basically, when Muslims greet each other, they send a prayer to them, which I think is pretty cool.
That is very cool. I love it. Love it. You're available on Twitter at The Real Waqas.
I'm very inactive these days.
WAQAS. If you have a question about Islam, about Waqas, send it my way. Tweet at Waqas. And again, we'll try to maybe educate the masses more and dispel some of the myths out there. Very quickly, your Spurs. Not used to being eliminated so quickly in the playoffs, which I thought was...
it was a nice shot, so you can't even be that...
I can't believe he hit that shot. That bugs me to this day. Are you happy with the Spurs offseason?
I will have to wait and see. It's exciting, but we'll see how they mesh with the system. Because Spurs is a system. It's not just, a bunch of players. It's you have to come into and really really believe in what you're getting into. So hopefully they just allow themselves to be pulled in with what Pop's vision. But
Pop's vision, yeah. I just think of LaMarcus Aldridge in the post. You give it to him, and there's cutters everywhere. The space he'll have to operate is unbelievable. I think it's going to prolong Duncan's career.
Yeah, give him little breaks.
And I think what's gone underreported is that David West also resigned.
Yes.
Or resigned with the Spurs for the veterans minimum. And I think he's such a important piece.
I think he'll fit.
Now, your loss in Corey Joseph is my gain with the Raptors. I'm
still a Raptors fan.
I am so excited for Corey Joseph. You know, growing up and developing as a player in the Spurs system, to come home to bring this championship pedigree, this defensive first mentality to the Raptors. I could see him starting at some point. Does that make Lowry expendable? I'm not totally saying that.
I haven't really seen what he can do on the Spurs, though. Like, it's been a while since we've seen him. Like,
it has
really
been
in action.
But he's accepted that role. He's going to take the Canadian Olympic team and qualify for Olympics. I think, and he's only 23. You know, like, he's got so much room to blossom.
He's learned at the Spurs. Like, if he comes to teach us the Raptors, that would be amazing.
And to teach that ball movement, which would be very conducive to Damari Carroll's game too, where he's coming from Atlanta. Wow, we've covered basketball. We've covered a religion. Fantastic stuff. Let's check out Fasting with Muslims next year. That'll be in June, I believe. I am committing myself to doing it next year. I hope others will join me in helping better educate ourselves about Islam. Waqas, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Unbelievable, enlightening experience. Shout out to our producer, Bronze. Zach Kubaseski, who puts this together, to our musicians, Tyler Miller and Mitch Deslitz, for the beautiful introduction, and of course to our main sponsor, Try Hard Apparel. Thank you very much. Give them a search on the Google. This has been a special edition of Mr. Nowak's Classroom, the virtually irrelevant podcast. Take care and be well.